Is my uncle crossing the line with my wife? Newly married, been a year. I am white, M, 29, and my wife is Asian, F, 27. My uncle is in his 50s with a wife, high school sweethearts, with children. I am very close with my family and go to get-togethers quite often. I started noticing him be extra friendly about a month after we got married. New Year's Eve of last year, we were celebrating with them. Once we went home, he called my wife and left voicemails joking around asking her if she liked cheesecake. My family has video of him making the calls, and everyone thought it was funny and joined in, so I cocked it up to me being paranoid. This Thanksgiving we drank quite a bit, and played one of those stupid dirty board games. There was an innuendo card about going down on a woman, and my uncle had that card. He read it to my wife as he put his arm around her. She jokingly tried to play it off and say, "What do you mean?" He then said, "Why don't you let me show you?" She felt uncomfortable and got up and stood behind me. Everyone kind of played it off as funny. Later that night I left to go to the bathroom. While I was gone, he picked my wife up, arm under legs and back. She is small, like 98 pounds, 5 foot tall. I asked her after finding out, was there a conversation about size or about how much you weigh, something to spark this event? She explained no. He just came up behind me and picked me up. Again, she kind of felt uncomfortable and said she told my uncle to put her down. My dad is the person who mentioned it to me, that this took place, and I could tell he felt weird about it too. At what point do I say something? Not trying to cause a family rift? Update. I spoke with my dad today, and he was very receptive and agreed my uncle, has gotten out of hand. My dad feels really bad and is happy I came forward with it. My dad apologized for not saying something himself, as he said he saw only the tail end of when he picked her up and wasn't sure what led up to that himself. Said he is my brother and I am your father still. Am in the best position to call that out in my own home. He said he is going to speak to my stepmother first to get her thoughts and talk with my uncle in private. Try and put it past us and keep the peace while also confronting the issue. Thank you again for all your advice and support. We'll give final update in next few days. Just found out Dad committed suicide in his apartment late August. Yes, I posted and deleted earlier today. Hurt feelings on my part because I just found out my dad killed himself and nobody noticed for 3 months. Years ago, Dad stopped talking to all family members and nobody lived nearby. He apparently stopped maintaining friendships too, but I'm not sure. We couldn't make him talk to us or return calls. This pattern began about 14 years ago. I am his only child, legally adopted, and I tried contacting him a few times in the past year, and he responded with disconnecting his phone numbers. A detective called me a few days ago and informed me that Dad shot himself in his bed. He had retired a few years ago and nobody noticed he was missing. Last financial activity was in late August. He paid his bills, mailed his rent check, and apparently shot himself shortly thereafter because of the state of decomposition he was found in. If it's not obvious, he lived alone. And yes, he was the sole tenant on his lease. I am terribly upset on many levels, and right now I am dealing with his landlady. She informed me she didn't notice Dad didn't pay $2,500 rent in October or November. Then it dawns on her about December 9th that he hasn't sent a December check. His body is so decomposed the detective has to obtain DNA from Dad's only remaining sibling alive. Landlady is saying I'm responsible for paying the rent she failed to notice she was not receiving. She said his estate should pay. I informed her that I am not the executor of the estate, and until the me produces a death certificate, I have no idea what is in Dad's accounts and if he named me or someone else or anyone as beneficiary. For all I know, he shot himself because he was broke, or he left all his money to the Chipmunk Rescue Foundation. I know Zip. And since he didn't talk to anyone and didn't even leave a suicide note, I can't imagine there is a will. If there is an estate, VA won't let me file probate for 60 days, and there's some weird rule about non-residents can't be executors without special hoops. So, I only have 10 days to get his stuff out, and I am the legal person to do it because I was listed as his emergency contact on his lease. However, she thinks she should get $5,000. I told her I can't answer her questions because as of this moment my only status is next of kin. I've found someone to take my child in for the next 10 days just before Christmas, not easy at all, and reserved a rental truck and moving crew just before Christmas. Also nearly impossible. My husband and I both had to take off work. Edit. Landlady has finally answered my calls and told me I can retrieve the keys from the front desk. Previous info, and she's not answering my calls or texts about when we can meet tomorrow so we can get in there and clear out her INTA because she wants $5,000 right now. Virginia law says she can't do that. Who do we call if she doesn't cooperate? Furthermore, she told me that she informed Dad he was now a month-to-month tenant because she needed to sell the unit. She told me she wants me to move Dad's stuff out so she can list it for sale and has no intention of renting it out again. AITA for threatening to divorce my wife if she didn't become a proper homemaker in the next month? My wife and I have been married for 4 years. I'm 33 and male, and she's 32. Her name is Steph. Steph is a SAHW, and since we got married, she has been incredibly inconsistent with household labor. I work a physically demanding job, and it would really help if Steph could at least cook dinner more than once or twice a week. Instead, she sits at the dinner table, hunched over her phone for hours a day. She's completely addicted to it, but she refuses to even have a conversation about this. Now, about twice a year, I have an opportunity to visit a foreign country for work. The nature of the work is to supervise construction and instruct the workers there. The compensation for these trips is always fantastic, and Steph is appreciative when I go because I bring home a pretty fat paycheck after. 3 weeks ago, I was about to depart for 2 weeks on such a trip. At around 10 a.m., I texted Steph and said that time was tight, but I'd be home at 12:30 to pick up my luggage. I asked her if she would make me something for lunch and she agreed to do so. I emphasized that I had about 10 minutes to stuff my face and then get to the airport. At 11 a.m., I texted her again, saying I'd be home as planned at 12:30. Again, she said okay. At 12 p.m., I texted her saying that I was leaving. I walked in the door at exactly 12:30, only to find her sitting at the dinner table, hunched over her phone. When I walked in, she gave me this bewildered look. She had done literally nothing. Nothing was cooking. Steph stood up in a panic and said she'd start making me lunch, but I told her that it was pointless. She sheepishly apologized, and I responded, "Don't say sorry, just be less fucking useless." This made her very upset. I just picked up my luggage, left, and went to the airport. I did manage to pick up some food at the airport, but I really would have liked a home-cooked meal before eating out every day for 2 weeks. I got home last week, and Steph was still angry. She said that what I said to her was over the top. I asked what she had been doing those 2 weeks, and she insisted that she was super busy, see, Instagram and Netflix. I gave her an ultimatum that she had 1 month, until January 10th, to get her shit together and be a proper homemaker. I told her that if she couldn't, I was going to divorce her. Steph was super upset, and for the past week, she has been sulking, see, Instagram and Netflix. She told her family about it, and her mother basically blamed me for Steph's lack of direction in life. I know it's nonsense that a 32-year-old woman needs to have her hand held to do anything, but was I being ridiculous with my ultimatum? The funniest story you will read tonight, FML. Mid-20s guy, recently single. I've had a few beers tonight. I think fuck it, I'll go on Tinder and see what's up. Immediately match with this, in my head, 10 out of 10. Get to talking. She's like, "Yup, come over and watch a movie." Job done, right? I grab a bottle of white wine and call a cab. Nervous as hell, as this will obviously be my first intimate moment with someone who is not my girlfriend in a long time. Eminem style, my palms are sweaty. We're about 5 minutes away and I start realizing that we're in an awful neighborhood. I'm talking cars with no tires and windows blown out. Oh, my God. Unfortunately, my survival instincts at the time are maybe slightly blurred. Call it intoxicated, call it horny, it's all the same. The cab gets to whatever address this beautiful Tinder woman has sent me, and I'm hesitant to get out of the cab. But, as I'm sure all of us has experienced, the will to fuck prevails. I get out and almost immediately the car full of men, smoking, drinking, listening to rap music where the beat makes you think oh fuck something is about to happen is playing. They start hollering at me and telling me to come over to the car. Oh my God, I've been set up. They're here to rob me and they're on Tinder doing it. In my sudden spurt of survival instincts, I starts bolting down the street. I'm hiding behind cars. I'm texting my roommates. This is it. This is where I live or die. I decide to unmatch on Tinder this goddess that has invited me over. I don't want these guys having my info. I'm hiding behind a van when in my panic I look up to the street sign. Assuming I'm where I'm supposed to be, I realize, holy shit, this isn't even the right neighborhood. The sudden shock and realization that no, I'm not getting jumped, and even worse, I am not getting laid kicks in. I then look at my taxi app history, find the address, and it's only a few streets down, and as one last attempt at saving this awful, embarrassing moment, I knock on her door. No answer. Fair enough. I unmatched her after telling her I'm 5 minutes away. I knock one more time for good luck, and begin to slowly walk away. As I'm giving up hope, she answers, "An angel, my savior." I had nothing to be saved of, but as my head is still spinning, this was the loveliest thing anyone's ever done. She invites me in. An hour of explanation ensues, and I get the job done. I'm seeing her tomorrow. Thanks for reading. I hope you laughed or at least smiled, because that was fucking insane. Cheers. I knew my husband was having an affair, but it was much worse than I could have imagined. When I saw my husband with that woman, holding hands at the park, looking like freaking teenagers, I felt my blood boil. The affair was now out in the open for everyone to see. I had suspected for years that he met someone at hotels, on business trips, but I never imagined he would dare display his adultery so brazenly. With cautious steps, I followed them, dreading what I would see. They stopped at a cafe, the same cafe we used to go to every Saturday evening, to discuss work and politics while sharing a few laughs. It felt like his visit to the cafe was a dagger sharper than their entwined hands. I watched the two lovebirds settle the bill and head towards home, our home. Moments later, I saw them unlock the door and proceed to turn my house into their personal love nest. They headed to the kitchen together, where he grabbed a knife, lime and tequila, presumably to make a margarita. "That was my wife's favorite drink," he said to her, meticulously slicing the lime as he used to do for me. I saw his gaze darken, and for a moment, his eyes flicked to our framed photo still hanging on the wall. "Wherever she is, I'm sure she's proud of you," the woman said, touching his hand. Proud isn't the right word to describe what I was feeling. I've been dead for 3 months, and his mistress is already making herself at home in my kitchen. He set aside the drink for a moment to indulge in another round of kisses. That was it. I couldn't just watch it anymore. I had to try the thing. My ghostly, non-corporeal form drifted close to her. The other spirits had told me about possession, how unstable and fleeting it could be. It rarely works, but perhaps, if I followed all the right steps. As they kissed, I slipped into her body, face to face, torso to torso, leg to leg, in a spiritual frenzy. My eyes closed, then opened. I immediately felt his beard against my face, the warmness of his body, something I haven't felt in a long time. That's when I remembered how much I actually missed him. Despite all this, I had succeeded. I was inside her body, though I had no idea how long it would last. He leaned back for a moment, readying himself to speak. "At least now we can finally be together," he said with a smile. "No more sneaking around because of my wife." I snapped completely, without thinking. I took the knife he was using for the margaritas and slashed his throat. "Won't cancel the service plan? I'd like to file a claim, please." I think this qualifies as malicious compliance, as one person being inflexible with the letter of a policy led the other person to comply with said policy and pursue its options in a way that brought about a change that aligned with the spirit of what was asked for in the first place. My parents had a house fire recently, no fault of theirs, and while the house didn't burn to the ground, this is important for later, it is basically a total loss due to heat, smoke, and structural damage. They have great replacement insurance. While the long wait for restoration and replacement will be frustrating, they are in as good of a situation as one could hope for. They also have one of those appliance service plans where they pay monthly. If any covered appliance isn't working properly, the service company will send someone out to troubleshoot, repair, and if it can't be repaired, replaced. My parents have the total coverage plan including everything from kitchen to laundry to the freezer chest and mudroom fridge. Since the house is uninhabitable, they called to cancel the service and ask about prorating this month. My mom explains the situation and the rep on the phone says sorry, they can't prorate this month nor can they cancel the service for the next payment cycle, even though they are in the middle of this payment cycle. Basically, it will be 45 more days of paying for coverage. My mom states that they are dealing with the stress of a house fire and living in short-term housing. I understand you can't prorate this month, but can you at least cancel the service for next month based on our situation? The rep says, well, I'm happy to cancel the service effective today if that's what you really want, but you will still have to pay for this month and next month. I can tell you from personal experience it's a bad idea to get cute with my mom. My mom says okay, No, we aren't going to cancel a service we still have to pay for. Please keep the service in place. Instead, I'd like to file a claim on all of our appliances. There is a pause, and the rep says you can't do that on appliances destroyed by fire. My mom says, oh, no, the house was damaged, but the appliances weren't destroyed. Since this plan is effective through next month, please start a claim to send a service rep out to the house for all of our covered appliances and do any repairs or replacements as needed. There is another pause, and the rep asks her to hold. A few minutes later, a supervisor gets on the line and says that due to the circumstances, they are happy to make an exception to cancel coverage early if she would like. Yes, thank you. For anyone thinking my parents should have seen the MC through to the end, they got what they initially asked for, and to do so would have foregone personal benefit for spite since the appliances will be covered by home insurance anyway. AITA for not shoveling snow right after giving birth. I, 21F, gave birth 3 days ago to a beautiful baby girl. We got home from the hospital earlier today. My husband, 29M, is beyond excited. He arranged for his parents to come over for dinner and to meet the baby. He asked me to make a duck roast, potato salad, beef, tartare, squash soup, steak and 2 different pies, pumpkin and pecan. I am really exhausted, and I'm struggling to care for the newborn and our toddler, 2M, at the same time. I exclusively breastfeed per my husband's suggestion, but I agreed to make the dinner because I am a really good cook. I needed to run to the grocery store to get some ingredients, but my car and our driveway were covered by inches of snow. My body is really hurting, so I asked my husband if he could shovel the snow for me, and I can then drive to the grocery store with the newborn and our toddler. In our household, the children are solely my responsibility because I gave birth to them. My husband refused to shovel snow because I am the one on maternity leave. I am a physics professor at Harvard, and they have a pretty generous maternity leave policy, so I should be the one taking care of all of the household chores. I know that my husband is ultimately right, as he has to go back to working at McDonald's the next day. He is a cashier, so he has to be constantly on his feet. However, I really didn't have the strength to shovel snow in the moment. Our driveway is huge. I bought the house using the money I got from winning a Nobel Prize last year. We don't hire any help around the house because my husband believes it is my responsibility as a woman to run things smoothly without wasting money on things that I can do myself. I asked my husband if he could shovel the snow for me, but he refused and mentioned that my waist had grown over an inch from my pre-pregnancy body. I used to have a 9-inch waist, but now it's grown to 10 inches. My husband said I could really use shoveling snow as a form of exercise to lose some weight. Because I was exhausted and hurting badly, I told him that I won't go to the grocery store unless he shoveled the snow for me. He became really upset and began calling me a lazy a-hole. He claimed that I disrespected him and his parents by not being enthusiastic about hosting. I feel very conflicted. Do I have the right to say no in this case, or am I just lazy? TIFU by going on a date with someone from Hinge. Okay, so a week or 2 ago I matched with a girl on Hinge. She is in the same town as me, appeared to be my type, similar interests, the whole thing. We chatted on Hinge for a while, and then moved to texting. We had a lot in common, and I found her physically attractive, so I asked her if she wanted to go on a date at a bar/grill in our downtown area of the city we lived in. We made the plans, and I get to the restaurant last night a little early and let her know I was going to grab a table. It was pretty busy and the place didn't do reservations, but told her I'd meet her up front when she got there. She tells me she's walking up, so I let the waiter know and meet her at the front of the restaurant, and a girl who I absolutely did not recognize walks through the door and greets me. After a few seconds, I realized it was in fact her, but truthfully probably twice the size of her from the photos. She wasn't stick thin in her pictures, by any means, but probably 100 pounds less than she is now. I believe I did a good job of not looking too shocked and gave her a hug, and we walked back to the table, had dinner, chatted, and I was probably much less chatty than I had been because I was just a bit shocked. I am not someone who has any issues with someone's weight, but I'm a smaller guy, 5 feet 9 inches, 130-ish, and have always found myself attracted to a particular type, which she appeared to have once been, but not any longer. She was cool, and the same person conversationally that I had talked to, but I was not attracted to her physically, and that made me sad, but that's something I have an issue faking. I paid for dinner, walked her to the car, and we went our separate ways. Afterwards, she texts me telling me how wonderful of a night it was and how she can't wait to do it again. To which I took some time to respond to make sure I was respectful and my response was well crafted and not rude in any way, but eventually let her know that I didn't feel a connection and I had a nice evening and would love to be friends. She immediately snaps to, "Oh, you're the same as all of the other guys. You love the old me but not the heavy me?" Followed by a few more messages detailing her past experiences and trying to explain that if I liked her when she was smaller, why can't I like her now? I truly felt bad and didn't want to tear her down or make her feel even less self-confident, but reiterated that I would be happy to continue to be friends and talk, but I couldn't see the romantic angle working. She wasn't a fan of that angle and said she was going to block me, to which I just didn't respond. So today comes around, and for background, I leave my personal phone at the house often if I have a busy work day, and I come home from the office to my friends sending me screenshots. Apparently, this girl had some mutual friends of mine, and she had posted on her Instagram story photos of my Hinge warning her followers to stay away from this guy. He's a POS yada yada yada. I have Instagram, but usually don't have it installed unless I'm painfully bored, so I never saw it. But re-downloaded it to see if the posts were real. Turns out, she found me on Instagram and blocked me, but my roommate showed me on his phone that the posts were indeed there. I had a few people reach out and ask me about it, but I still feel bad and have been confused about the situation all afternoon and wondered if I could have handled it better. She clearly had self-confidence issues, given all of her Hinge photos ended up being quite old, and I hate to think I contributed to making that worse. That said, I feel her response has been extremely out of proportion, as I still paid for dinner, walked her to her car, and explained my position in what I thought was a thoughtful way. Anyway, I think that's enough online dating for me for a while.